This is the EWN Radio Network. You're listening to the Focus Radio Show on the EWN Radio Network.
And welcome to the Focus Radio, where our focus is providing useful resources to help you grow your business. Well, this is your host, Liz Urim, and I am joined today with my wonderful co-host, Alyssa Granlund. And we have a very special guest coming on a little bit later, in just a few minutes, actually. Our special guest today is Melanie Benson-Strick, America's leading small business optimizer. And I know that you are going to love the topic today, because she is going to talk to us about how to stop being the bottleneck to your 6 to 7 figure growth. Now, I'm sure that most of us don't think we are our own bottlenecks, but I can assure you that I am, and I'm excited to find out what she has to say. I'm sure Alyssa is as well. Right, Alyssa?
That's right. I know it.
Yes, we do. Alyssa and I have our own little secret here, and our secret is that we love to bring on guests who can help us with our businesses as well. And we do that because we know that if it helps us, it will help you as well. So that's our little secret that now everybody knows. So I want to make sure that you know how you can get in touch with us besides listening to our podcast here. You can follow us on Twitter at The Focus Radio. You can follow us on our Facebook page, which we would love to do, and hear your comments at it's facebook.com/The Focus Radio. And then also our website is thefocusradio.com. We are very easy to remember, because I think that's one of the important things about running your business is making it easy and making it easy for people to find you. So the Focus Radio are all the ways that you can get in touch with us and to access previous podcasts. As I said, our goal is to really bring on resources to help you stay focused on your business and to get that business growth that you want. So we have all of our great recordings and all of our great podcasts are available to you, so you can just go out to any of those sites and grab a link and hear who you need to hear and maybe listen in again. So that is how we help you. So I want to talk a little bit, before we bring on our guest today, I want to talk a little bit about multitasking. And the reason I want to talk about that, I sense that might be one way that we create bottlenecks for ourselves. We'll have Melanie confirm that in a few minutes here. But I've been reading a book, The 4 Disciplines of Execution, by Chris McChesney and Sean Covey and Jim Hewling. And it's a great book about goal setting. I was reading this because I was preparing a training for the senior management team of a restaurant business. And in researching and helping them strategize and figure out their goal-setting process for the upcoming year, this book was really helpful in doing that. So one of the things as it relates to goal-setting specifically is it talks a little bit about multitasking and how human beings, we kind of are, I think, not even necessarily by habit, by necessity, tend to do a lot of multitasking because there's so much information coming at us from all these different ways. But the studies that are out about multitasking are kind of interesting, and they're from MIT and Harvard and National Neurological Institutes and all these places that have done all this brain research. And what they have found about multitasking is that we are getting better at multitasking because the part of the brain that helps you multitask is getting stronger, right? So the brain is kind of like that muscle, and the more you use it, the stronger it gets. But the downside to that is that the part of our brain that's used for critical thinking or for deep thinking and really getting deep on the subject is getting weaker because we don't use it as much. And I thought that makes a lot of sense. So I have always kind of prided myself on my ability to multitask, and now I'm wondering whether or not I'm actually doing as well as I thought I was doing on that. So, Alyssa, I wanted to ask you, are you a multitasker? How do you rate yourself on your multitasking skills?
So for me, I don't really think that it. I don't really think it's a true thing that people do personally, because I think that you're focusing maybe on a number of different things, but each time you've got to refocus on that thing. So it's not like you're doing two things at once. I think you focus on, or at least for me, I have to focus on one thing. Then I got to switch gears and focus on the other thing. And maybe it seems like it, but I know that if I just focus on one thing and get it done, I can get a lot more done faster. If I just make a list and just prioritize the list and then just go down the list and get it done, I'm a lot more efficient that way. So, and I guess another thing for me too, like I don't like to listen to music. If I'm really focused on something, I don't like any other distractions. I just got to kind of get it done. So, for me, it's not something I'm good at.
Okay, so you know that about yourself. You're not a prideful multitasker. This book I'm reading, too, or that I've read, it's a great reference material. It says that human beings are genetically hardwired to do one thing at a time with excellence, and with excellence is in italics. And I think, to your point, being able to really focus in on one thing. Because I think another place that multitasking can hurt us sometimes, and this is actually from another training I did just this morning. I was training a group at one of the universities here, and it was about interpersonal skills and interpersonal communication. And we think when we're multitasking, when people are trying to talk to us, it really devalues the person that's trying to talk to you.
Right.
So when someone needs to come and talk to you about something and you keep on doing what you're doing, whether it's typing on the computer or looking at your phone or whatever, so we think we're multitasking and being really efficient, I guess, we're actually really damaging those relationships. Because that is another interesting way of kind of looking at this and really rethinking whether or not it's really such a good thing or not. But it does seem like that with all the technology and everything out there, it can be difficult. So how do you shift gears? So you said you work off of a to-do list and you just really focus on one thing at a time?
Yeah, well, my most efficient days I do that. I don't always do that because I, you know how it is. You get going and then get distracted and just kind of all of a sudden I'm down a rabbit hole, and you look up and all of a sudden an hour or two has gone by and it's like I don't even know what I was doing, So if I have a to-do list, then yes, I can get a ton done. But if I don't, then it's definitely a lot more difficult. And I've also found, for me, that if I have that list, it just feels really great to check it off, and then I get it, and the more I do, the more momentum I get, and I can start flying through stuff. But I can't really do two things at a time. I just can't.
Yeah, and that was really kind of the premise of this book and what their philosophy on goal setting. So this is really looking more from a strategic level, a little bit more than the to-do list, but the same kind of an idea with the goals is not to have a dozen goals, right? Again, different than a to-do list, but those bigger goals that we work on and have them in more manageable chunks, like quarterly. Also, but so instead of having 10 different goals that you're trying to, having really 2 to 3 really kind of significant, kind of meaningful goals, because you can give those more of your attention. And then I was saying the to-do list really just helps support. Those are those little things that you do that help you reach your larger goal.
Exactly.
And I always think that's kind of important to remind people of. It's already getting time, I hate to say it, but it's already getting time to think about goal setting for the new year.
Oh yeah, for sure. I know it's kind of a fun time, especially today. We've got our very first winter storm here, and I don't know, that always makes me start to think about getting ready too for January 1st or whatever. So
yeah,
so that's great.
Blizzard.
How about you, Liz? Are you how do you multitask? What? Tell more about that. I mean, you said you think you're pretty good at it. So how do you make it work for you?
Well, now I question myself, does it work or not? I would say it does work because I feel like I'm able to get a lot done. So like right now as I'm preparing for the show, I've got other things. I don't know if this counts as multitasking or not, but I have about 8 tabs open on my browser, on my internet. I know I've got things I need to do when the show is over. I've got different piles all over. If you saw my office, you might say you're not efficient at all. You're not. How can you be productive? It works for me. I'm not. I don't know. There's a method to my madness, I guess. I don't feel like and I guess I would judge am I not doing things? Am I feeling overwhelmed? Am I feeling too busy? And I don't. I never feel overwhelmed. I shouldn't say never. That's kind of a strong word, but occasionally when I do start to feel overwhelmed, I do what you do. I write it all down. I make a big list. Most of the time I can juggle everything in my head or, kind of keep it there, and I don't miss things and I don't feel too busy. But occasionally it's like, whoa, I've got all these different ideas. So then I need to write it all out and just get it on a list, just because otherwise I start to feel like, oh, I'm going to miss something. So I don't know. I guess I don't know what that is. If it is a mindset thing, if it's just being comfortable in chaos, I don't know. But I feel okay with it. Again, could I be, if I need to really focus in, if there's something really important with a deadline, then I would say in that case, yeah, I will just focus in on that one thing.
I know, aren't deadlines just the ultimate motivator?
Well, they are, and they're so good at, when you have a deadline to get one thing done and it's a thing you don't want to do, it's amazing how many other things you can get done, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, wow, my house suddenly gets so clean when I'm putting off that other thing.
Your in-laws are coming over tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, that's when my desk gets clean and my files get put away, when I have that one kind of big task that I don't really want to do that's out there. And it's not even that I don't want to do it sometimes. I don't know. It's kind of strange. So, well, we're going to go ahead and head to a commercial, and when we get back, we're going to be back on with Melanie Benson-Strick, who's going to help set Alyssa and I straight, I hope, and help us get out of it. We'll find out whether or not we are being our bottlenecks or not, and if we are, hopefully Melanie will help us get out of our own way. So I'll be back in just a minute.
Most people know UPS, but did you know we offer expert advice and time-saving tools for startups?
I have a big idea, and now I have big decisions to make.
We can help you get there.
Startups need all the help we can get.
Talk with our experts and find technology that can help you automate tasks so you can do more, faster.
To grow, I need help saving time and money.
Have a one-on-one consultation with a specialist at no cost, and our shipping and tracking tools are free as well.
I want to be more efficient and streamline operations.
You can even sign up for UPS Smart Pickup, which will automatically notify a driver whenever you create a shipment online.
Wow, so I can spend more time focusing on the big picture?
You focus on your business, while we take care of the logistics.
Putting more energy toward my dreams, that would be huge.
Get expert advice for your growing business. See how at ups.com/startups.
I love logistics.
Feeling the need to tweet but just not sure where to start? Or maybe it feels like everyone you know is talking about hashtags and handles, and you are clueless why or how you would need to use these. Tina, one of our co-hosts, had the same feeling a couple of years ago. She was sick of feeling out of the loop. So once she mastered this marketing tool we call Twitter, she created a 21-day online course called Fall in Love with Twitter. She has brought in over 30% of her business from just this one social media platform. Wow, right? So what are you waiting for? Start falling in love today by signing up on fallinlovewithtwitter.com.
Hi, I'm Sandra Yancey, founder and CEO of eWomen Network. One of my mottos for business owners is, you can't do it alone. Whether you're in the startup stage of your business or you're scaling, you can't grow without relationships to provide support, wisdom, and new customers. eWomen Network is your home to connect with other women entrepreneurs who have been where you are or are experiencing the same challenges. We have chapters across the U.S. and Canada that have monthly events featuring our trademarked process called Accelerated Networking to ensure you get the context, resources, and leads you need to grow your business. And once you become a member, you get many benefits, including 2 one-on-one coaching sessions, unlimited access to our membership database, your own personal profile page, and discounts on products and services with our business partners such as UPS and American Express Open. Join the eWomen Network community and let us help you live your dream. For details, visit eWomenNetwork.com.
All right, welcome back to the Focus Radio Show. We are about to be joined by our special guest, Melanie Benson-Strick. Melanie is an optimizer and has a gift for guiding fast-paced, overwhelmed, driven entrepreneurs to thrive in their small business. With over 13 years mentoring thought leaders, visionaries, and creative professionals, Melanie is a revenue strategist, and we all love that, uncovering what derails you from productivity and progress, ultimately freeing you to live your best life. Melanie is co-author of Entrepreneur.com's startup guide to starting an information marketing business, and has her success tips featured in magazines such as American Express Open Forum, Women's Day, Parenting Magazine, University of Phoenix Alumni Magazine, and the LA Times. She is on the executive team for the Women's Speakers Association, is on the programs committee for the Association of Transformational Leaders, and hosts the weekly speaker chat on Twitter and Small Biz Optimizer podcast. Melanie is a proud lifestyle enthusiast and spends her free time in search of the best spas and beaches in the world. That sounds like a wonderful way to spend your free time. Melanie, welcome to the Focus Radio Show.
Thank you. Yeah, with my multitasking, I try all kinds of different beaches and spas.
Okay. How's it working for you?
I actually prefer just to do one thing, relax when I'm there.
Yes. My favorite thing to do.
You guys are cracking me up with the multitasking conversation. I was loving it.
I love to lay on the beach. My favorite thing to do, favorite type of vacation.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you're here to help us talk about how to stop being the bottleneck to your 6 to 7 figure growth. So talk to us about how are entrepreneurs becoming a bottleneck to their growth. What are we doing wrong, or what are we doing to get in our own way?
Yeah, and I think it's so accurate to say how we get in our own way, because the idea of a bottleneck is that somehow you have all this stuff you want to do, but you're trying to get it through this really small passageway. I like to think of like a pipeline that just gets clogged up, and so you're trying to get all this stuff through, and you just can't. And I think what happens for entrepreneurs is we're well-meaning. We're very passionate, right? We're so driven, and I could even just tell as you guys were talking about your strategies about getting things done, how passionate you are about your goals and the things you want to accomplish. So we end up saying yes to a lot of stuff. And eventually what happens is we have all these things that we want, but we don't know, we don't have the bandwidth, or we don't have the capacity to get there. And what I see is the truest essence of a bottleneck is when we're in our own way. And we can get in our own way in one of three ways. The way we're thinking about something is causing us to think too small. And it acts as a barrier and a blockage to being able to really achieve what we want, but because we're so used to looking at it a certain way, we're literally stopping progress. And I've done that to myself. I think everybody can relate. Like the way we're seeing the situation is becoming the bottleneck. Yeah. The second one, and this really ties into what you were talking about earlier with the multitasking, is the way our habits, our productivity, the way we take action becomes a bottleneck. And again, it oftentimes comes from a place of not knowing what you could be doing differently. So it's just a lack of knowledge, not a lack of willingness. But we oftentimes are cutting off the next level of success or achieving the goal we want simply from a place of we're not doing the right things at the right time and in the right way. But the third one is also really prevalent, and especially if you're tuned in and you know how you need to think, you're playing a big game. But I like to think of it as like the structural bottleneck, and that is you don't have the infrastructure in order to evolve the growth of your business. So that could be things like your team. It could be the way you're designing certain marketing or business growth strategies. It could be the fact that you're missing systems, and so now every time you put a certain project out, things are breaking down. What I find for most entrepreneurs who really have a big dream, but they don't actually have the success they want, is they've oftentimes become the bottleneck and they don't even know it. And it's truly an easy fix when we recognize that we're the thing that's in the way. We just have to make a new decision about how we're going to get where we want to go.
Right, and that makes sense because acceptance is the first step to any change, right? We have to know that, we have to understand that we are a problem. Can you expand a little bit on this whole thinking small mentality and what that's all about? Because I hear about that a lot. And when we talk about thinking small, and I know I've experienced this myself, is it that we're thinking small as far as, what are some examples of that? Is it our market? Is it our offering? Is it our prices that we're charging? What kind of things are people thinking small about?
Well, okay, so share an example. I think that when we're thinking small, it's not that we're consciously saying, okay, I don't want to do that. That's too big for me. It's very rarely conscious, although I have actually heard people, I had this one woman tell me, I don't want to do that. That's way too big for me. I'm like, oh, really? Okay. What most of us do is the lens in which we see opportunities from is colored and filtered with our beliefs of what's possible. So if we unravel what a bottleneck looks like when we're playing small, there's some part of us that's making decisions for what gets our yes based on what we believe we are capable of versus what's actually possible out there in the world. And let's say 10 people are actually going for this big, let's say somebody had wanted to build this huge training empire that was a multi-million-dollar business. Well, somebody who was playing small would say, that's not for me, and they would just discount it without really challenging themselves and asking, is that actually possible for me? It's totally okay to choose not to do it because it doesn't align with your values, but the person who's playing small dismisses it because on some level they don't believe they're capable.
So it really has to do with having belief in the possibilities.
Yeah, and it's removing the filter called it's not for me, I can't have it, I can't do it, I'm not capable, I don't have the right resources, I don't know how. It's removing all of those filters. I don't know how is one of the biggest bottlenecks to significance. And it's not because we're not capable. I talk to amazing business owners all day long and help them get out of that bottleneck and really get the right infrastructure and the mindset and the productivity habits to grow. But when we're in that space, it feels very real. And oftentimes it's because we make up that being in that space or having that thing is going to be difficult, it's going to be challenging, it's going to be painful. We're attaching something uncomfortable to it instead of having this vision of, if I'm going to do that and go for what I want, really have the life that I want, have it all, what would that look like? And really customizing that ultimate goal to fit our values, our priorities, and what success means to us.
Yeah. I'm just my mind is spinning right now with so many different questions about that.
Well, maybe I could just take a second while you're letting all that settle in to share. Let me share a few of the bottlenecks. And I know there's usually one or two that my hosts like to talk about. So maybe we'll think about which one's the most impactful to the community we're serving here. But mindset, our thinking, is one bottleneck. Another one that a lot of people don't realize is actually a bottleneck, and you were alluding to it earlier, is what I call creativity addiction. It's that deep desire to produce more, to get more out, and we kind of, as entrepreneurs, we get juiced in that creativity. It's kind of like a part of our job description is we have to be creative, right? We have to think outside the box. But what I always go back to is the strength overused becomes our greatest weakness. And sometimes we don't realize that we're continuing to be creative and we're continuing to add more to our list. And you were talking about having lots of goals and lots of things on our plate. Well, at a certain point, the truth is if you have too many different projects, ideas, and products that you're trying to get out there at the same time, all of them will suffer. It's you can't spread your greatness that wide and far and have things be at a level of excellence that I truly believe that we're capable of. So creativity addiction becomes a bottleneck because we're wasting resources. We are missing the boat a lot of times on getting something out in the best way possible. So that's a bottleneck. Being a slow decision maker. How many times have you talked to somebody who vacillates on a decision back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, right? And, what happens for many of us is we've so much just trying to go through our head and we're afraid to make a wrong decision that we don't make any decision. And what happens when you don't make decisions, especially if you have a team, is that everything gets stalled behind the bottleneck called the decision. So many of us bottleneck growth because we are either not having good decision-making formulas, we don't really know what a good decision is, so we just don't make them, or we're holding on to too much too many of the decision-making levels in our business, and we haven't learned how to delegate decisions to the people who can make them faster and more effectively once we've started to build up a team. So that's another interesting one that a lot of people don't realize, wow, I'm actually bottlenecking right now because I'm not making a decision. Mm-hmm. We were talking earlier about not knowing how. Yep. That's huge. You know, if I don't know how, I'm not going to go for it. That's a big one. And I think another one that's worth talking about here today is being in the weeds. What does that mean to you guys, Alyssa and Liz? Like, what does that mean to you, being in the weeds, when I say that?
Being in the leaves?
In the weeds.
Yeah, it makes me think of the days when I was a waitress, because that was always what you would say, I'm in the weeds, you know, and then other people would run and help you get your food out, you know. I mean, right. That's like back, you know, when I was young, but that's when I remember using that a lot, in the weeds. But, yeah, I think it's overwhelmed, you know, like maybe you got too much going on, too much on your plate. Yeah, that's what it means to me anyway.
What about you, Liz?
Yeah, and I'm thinking just probably a lot in the minutia, the things that don't matter that much.
Exactly. Yeah, you know, when I'm working with entrepreneurs, a lot of times what happens is it becomes a bottleneck is we get so sucked into the details of how every single little thing has to get done. We've lost our attention and our vision and our focus on the big picture. Mm-hmm. So we're like dragging anchors, right? It's like slogging through the mud with massive rain boots, and we can't get anywhere fast enough. And it's because we've allowed ourselves to get pulled out of the game called focus on where we're going and be the high-level vision. And especially when we have a team, when we get sucked into the weeds, we're handling stuff that other people should be able to do for us. And it causes us to really slow down our growth. And it's also really frustrating because we're thinking like, hey, I have hired people to help me. Why am I doing this? And it's our own it's like a survival mechanism that kicks in if things aren't going the way we want. We like jump back in and get in the weeds, and really what we've done is we've now just what I consider kind of gridlocked the team and the entire movement of the business. So those are some big ones that I notice come up for people a lot in that bottlenecking process.
Yeah, and I think, too, when you get into talking about being in the weeds and delegation in general, people have the misconception that, if I do it myself, it's faster. It's like, no, actually, if you're not doing it at all, it's faster. You'll save more time if you don't do it at all, so give it to somebody else. But it takes time to stop what you're doing, get off the merry-go-round, and teach somebody else how to do it or do that training or whatever. But long-term, it's so much better than doing it yourself.
Yeah, it's like you're playing for the short game or the long game, right?
Yeah.
And the short game is I'm going to do it myself because I can get it done faster. And this is a kind of a golf term, so if you don't play golf, I apologize. The short game is you're also but the long game is you're looking at, all right, so what decisions do I need to make today so tomorrow I have the business that really does free me up to stay focused on what I do best. And what I want for every business owner on this planet is to be able to spend time doing the things that they love the most. And when you do that, your business will always feel like you're in this effortlessness. And I'm not saying there's an effort to building your business. It's a term that people oftentimes misunderstand. But what happens for a lot of us is that we start doing so many different things that don't energize us and don't make us feel alive and excited that we end up starting to resent the business, or we resent what we've built. And then we think, I don't know if I want this anymore, or, wow, this isn't really what I thought I was getting. Or you get to this ultimate financial success, but all the things you have to do to get there, you think, wow, really? Like, this is what it's going to be? And you don't really feel as fulfilled as you ultimately thought you could. And a lot of that boils down to the fact that you're spending a lot of time doing things that aren't your magic. They're not the things that make you feel excited. One of the words that has become very popular to describe it is your genius. You're not in your genius. And it's very exhausting to not be in your genius. And so I like to think of it as like, how do I minimize the number of things that I have to do that take me out of feeling like I'm in my genius? Because if I can spend as much time as possible in my genius, my inspiration stays high, my motivation stays high, my my alignment to the business that I want to grow stays high. Because otherwise what happens, it's very easy to get distracted and start doing things just because it'll make money, just so that it'll fix a problem just so that we can, get to that next incremental growth step. So I like to think of this as like we're building the long game. Now, obviously, there's times when we need to have fast cash coming in the door, and we might, need to do an emergency repair if something didn't go well. But ultimately, your job as the business owner is to stay focused on the long game. What is the business I ultimately want, and what decision do I need to make today that will help me get there in the fastest way possible?
Yeah. Do you think, too, that having that long game insight or keeping that the main focus, the long game, helps people with their mindset in the realm of not getting discouraged, of being able to weather the storms, to get over the just those tough times in business when you're trying to start a business and getting things going and building the momentum, that when you keep the focus on the long game, does it help with those other areas?
Well, in my experience, both personally and having worked with a lot of really, big leaders and entrepreneurs of all kinds, like all different ranges of success, when you are focused on your long game, you're also staying connected to what many refer to as the big why. Why did I start this in the first place? Like, what was it that I wanted? What was that passion that made me crazy enough to go out and build a business, right? I mean, there's a lot of risk involved. There's a lot of chances that we take. There's a lot of work that we're going to invest in this thing. And so we have to stay connected to the why. And when we're focused on that long game, what happens today becomes a much different perspective when we realize it's just one small blip on the radar of a much bigger picture. And excuse me, I'll just share from a personal experience. I've had two really significant, what I like to call them, perfect storms in my evolution as a business owner. And the first one happened a couple of years in, so it was just part of my learning how to become a business owner. But the second one, I had reached into the seven-figure mark, and everything collapsed, and everything fell apart, and it was a really scary time. And I started to kind of suck into the drama of it until I realized, like, you know what? Every successful person on this planet has failed multiple times. It's our job, and Pema Chodron says this, I can't remember what book it's in, but it's a very powerful thing to remember, is that our job as a person on this planet is to get really good at failing and to fail quickly so we can get back to doing what we're born to do. See, the problem is if we take the failure personally and we get too deep into the problem and we get caught up in the problem, then we just see more of the problem and we're completely out of the game called success. But if we just like, all right, how do I get through this and get back to what I was born to do, get back to, the trajectory of what this success is supposed to be about, then we go, okay, so it failed. Now what? Now what do I need to do to get back on track? And it just becomes something to move through.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing for people to remember too, because sometimes we just don't want it, we refuse to let go. And that's a bottleneck in itself, is that hanging on and refusing to let go. But I think one question people struggle with a lot are the, business owners, especially as they're starting out. How do you know if you're failing or if the time just hasn't come yet?
Yeah, that's such a rich place in our lives because it's scary and it's exhilarating and it can be really confusing. All I can say is what works for me. And that is that if I'm really passionate about something and I'm doing what is in alignment with my great why, but the execution I'm in right now isn't working, I don't have a problem letting go of it. As a matter of fact, I'm in the process of letting go of something right now, something that I built for 12 years. And what I became really clear about is that it just wasn't lighting me up. And that was clue number one. It's just, it's something that I'm good at, but it's not my genius. It's not the thing that lights me up the most when I do it. So I'm like, it's okay to let it go because it's not necessarily something that only I can do on this planet. I think when you're really clear who you are and what you're about and what your genius is, it's really easy to know when it's time to let something go. So, clue number one is it doesn't light you up. Number two is that I think you have to just sometimes be willing to let something go to know if it's really meant to be. Because here's the other interesting thing. When you try to fire yourself, so to speak, from something that's not working and it keeps coming back, that's a really good clue too. Because I actually tried to fire myself 3 times from something, a body of work, and every time I try to move away from it, it keeps coming back, and finally I'm like, okay, I get it. This is the thing that I'm born to do. This is the thing that I'm really unique at. So I think a third thing is sometimes you just have to be willing to walk away from something if the financial output that you're getting is much lower than the requirement to put in. So the time and the money that you put into it is much greater than the money and the results you're getting out of it. And that might be a sign that you need to be willing to do it differently. So you might need to restructure it. But if it's upside down and you're putting so much time and money into something and it's not working, walk away, regroup, retool it, or just get rid of it. Sometimes it's a sign you just need to move on. And that's where a coach can come in handy for a lot of people, is really helping you to assess that.
Yeah. Well, as you're talking through these things, a couple of different sayings that have been out there forever come to mind. One is that if you love something, let it go. If it was meant to be, it will come back, right? And usually we think of that one in terms of relationships, but I've never thought about with business. But that's so true, because typically we have our business because we love it. We have that passion like you were talking about, and we love our businesses, which is why we started it. But so you can kind of let go of some of that fear that, hey, if it's meant to be, it'll be. And then, so it's making me think of business really is a relationship, isn't it? I mean, the business we own, we know the business of working with clients and all that is relationships, but it's a relationship with us and our business that we've been growing. And then the other thing I thought about is the insanity of doing something over and over, expecting different results. So sometimes taking that step back, what needs to change here? Yep. You feel it in your gut that this is what you're supposed to be doing and this is your purpose. And you know that, I think. You know the difference. But, what do I need to do here? What can I do differently?
And sometimes that's the question to ask is, and this is really, really pivotal. I hope you will write this down and really think about this and be with this. Is like, who do I need to be? And that's, again, bringing us back to the bottleneck, is that what I have noticed 9 times out of 10, the bottleneck is with us. We're holding on to something for the wrong reasons. We're unwilling to let's say we maybe need to evolve the strategy, but the idea is the correct one. For a lot of people, we get very anchored in, hey, this worked before, but it's not working anymore, and we haven't evolved our approach with it to move with the changing environment around us. So there's a lot of ways that we can look at, who do I need to become in order to make the business or this idea work better. And, one of the things that I think really is big for many of us is we have to recognize that as we grow and evolve as a business, we move through different stages. There's startup, there's, the evolution of, getting better at just making the business perform better. Then there's going to be kind of a capping out stage where we hit our goals and we're like, okay, now what? And as we go through these different stages, we have to recognize that the strategies that got us to the level of success we're at right now are not necessarily the strategies that are going to get us to the next level of success. And that means we have to be willing to change how we run the business, how we show up as that entrepreneur and that leader to match what the business needs from us to go to the next level.
Yeah. Oh, so much great stuff here. So we're going to take a break, and we need to break to commercial. And when we get back from commercial, why don't we dig into a little bit more about the different phases of business growth, and when are there certain times of the business growth or different stages that we're more prone to that bottleneck, and what are some of those things? And we always hear about this when each stage you get to, you have all kinds of different challenges. You have different things out there that you didn't have to face before. So when we get back from break, let's dig into that a little bit more, the different phases, and we'll be right back.
CookieTemptations.com will handcraft the perfect sugar cookies and cookie bouquets using the finest chocolates for your special occasion. At CookieTemptations.com, our chocolate-covered cookies are beautiful, amazingly delicious, and we promise they will leave a lasting impression. Chocolate-covered cookies are a great alternative to flowers or other gifts. We ship nationwide right to your door. Ask us about our gluten-free option. Visit us at CookieTemptations.com and receive $5 off your next order when you mention Cookie. That's CookieTemptations.com. Use our special code COOKIE and see what we can create for you today to make your next occasion something to remember.
Could your business benefit from more focus and direction on the things that matter? The Coach and Mentor Group has programs to help your business succeed. From developing your business and marketing plan to training your team to work more effectively, the Coach and Mentor Group is with you every step of the way as you take your business from startup to grown-up. To learn more about how we can help you, visit the Coach and Mentor Group at coachandmentor.net or call 612-961-9801. That's coachandmentor.net or call 612-961-9801.
I'm looking for a certain kind of woman, and I think you know her. She's an entrepreneur that is highly connected, successful, significant in her own industry, and considered the go-to woman in her community. She's received so much from so many women in business, she's ready to give back to others on their journey, lifting as she climbs. Hi, this is Sandra Yancey, and I'm the founder and CEO of eWomen Network. I'm looking to connect with the woman I've just described who lives in your community so that we might have a conversation about how eWomen Network's proven success system can provide her a platform to elevate her success and ability to support women in business. Our international community of managing directors are influencing the speed of success for women in business around the world. If that sounds like something that you want to be part of or know someone we should talk with, send an email to managingdirector@ewomennetwork.com. That's managingdirector@ewomennetwork.com, and let's start the conversation.
All right, welcome back to the Focus Radio Show and our special guest, Melanie Benson-Strick. We're having an awesome conversation here about how some of the bottlenecks that we have in our business and how we can stop getting in our own way. So right before break, we were talking about some of the different phases of growth in a business, and are there some areas that are there some phases that we're more prone to becoming a bottleneck? And what do you say to that, Melanie? What are some of the phases that we need to watch out for, and what are we doing?
Oh, that's a great question, and I actually think that there's unique bottlenecks to each of the stages in our evolution. Let me just share the ones the way I see them. The first phase is our startup phase. And the startup phase is pretty obvious. This is where we've got the idea, we're trying to get the idea out there in the world. We got a million things on our plate. Typically at this stage, funds are low. We don't have a ton of cash flow unless we've gone out and got funding for the idea, which it's still borrowed funds, so it's not necessarily funds we're generating. But we have a really high need for results. We're trying to get a lot of things put out there. We're trying to figure out who our market is, what products we're selling, how to position them. So lots of questions, lots of stuff going on, lots of activity, but not necessarily lots of funds to make things happen quickly. And what I find in this phase is the biggest bottleneck is the do-it-yourself bottleneck. And for some people, you do have to just suffer with that. But what you have to recognize is if you are going to be in the do-it-yourself mode and you're not going to invest in people to help you get your idea off the ground that can do it better, faster, or cheaper than you, which is my mantra, then you have to be willing to set expectations differently for how quickly you can move in that phase. And, our expectations can become the bottleneck because we beat ourselves up. We're not moving fast enough, but we haven't been willing to invest in what I like to call bandwidth multipliers, which are ways that people can help you get more done quickly. And that's a whole conversation itself, so I'm going to put that on pause for a second and cover the other three. So startup, one of the unique bottlenecks there, and you can also have mindset bottlenecks there, but one of the biggest ones is definitely the bootstrapping, I'm going to do it all myself mode. The second phase that I see that entrepreneurs move through is what I like to consider the chaos phase. So this is the phase where things are starting to work, and they're working really fast. lots of opportunities coming in the door. You've learned how to make money. You're usually making fast money, but you don't necessarily have the infrastructure to sustain the growth. So the bottlenecks become all the breakdowns. You have not created the infrastructure you need, so the stress is high, the overwhelm's high, the frustration tends to get high, the breakdowns tend to be on the high side. And even though it's exciting because there's a lot of good happening, there's also a lot of things that are working very bad at the same time. I had a duo, a partnership, come to me at that stage, and they started making about $200,000 a year, and they got to that within a year of launching their business because they actually knew what they were doing. They knew who their market was. They got through the startup phase really quickly, but they did not put any attention and focus on their back end and their infrastructure. So they had all these clients that weren't being served well. And they were working 7 days a week, 14, sometimes 20-hour days, and they've been doing that for a year. And one of the partners in that relationship was very burned out, melting down a lot, feeling so overwhelmed that she was losing her magic on stage, and it became really toxic in the partnership. So, one of the things we had to look at is how they had become the bottleneck because everything had to go through them. So we started looking at, all right, what decision-making systems do you need? Who's going to own what? Who are you going to hire first? What's the fastest path to getting liberated from these activities that are draining you? And so in that stage, it's all about getting the infrastructure to support the next level of growth. And that's the optimize phase. Now, this is a really cool phase when you get to it because at this point you know what works and you have a good infrastructure, but your dream and your goal is to get more significance, more success, more impact. So you're looking for the next level. And so what happens for a lot of people in Optimize is if they don't understand they're in the Optimize phase, is they go into creativity addiction again. And what happens is it starts the startup and chaos phases over again. What the opportunity here is to actually optimize, and that is figure out what is working and focus on making it perform better and constantly growing those key offerings, and to max out those offerings so that you are leveraging the most powerful way possible. This is where profits are, and this stage gets missed by about 60 to 70% of smaller entrepreneurs. They don't ever get to the optimize phase because they keep going back through startup and chaos because of that creativity addiction. So optimize, and then the fourth stage happens beyond optimization, and this, what I like to look at this as like the stagnant phase, and this is when you have optimized for a while, but you're bored. It's like you're like, I'm missing the creativity. Like I can't possibly run that event ever again. It's just making me feel so stale. Your market share is low. Maybe your responsiveness from your list or the markets that you normally market to is low because they've been seeing the same thing for too long. You really maxed out on all the different markets you can optimize. And at this point, the opportunity is to evolve the purpose, the product, and the people. And that means you. Like really learn how to evolve the key offerings. So the bottleneck there is, again, you. Like really recognizing that it's time to figure out what's the next evolution of the business and thinking bigger and getting out of your own way again and really being willing to move through that stage and go through the cycle again, but doing it with a lot more clarity and purpose.
Yeah, so it's really a growth pattern really too.
It is, and human beings as a rule are going to go through this. Our businesses are just a reflection of us as human beings.
Yeah, that is so cool. I want to make sure that because I have a tendency to do this, to just take over and not let my co-hosts ask any questions. So I want to make sure that because our time is already we're running short on time already. So Alyssa, I want to make sure that you have a chance to ask Melanie any questions that you have.
Yeah, this has been great. It's been really, honestly, just kind of like holding up a mirror, to be honest. Everything you're saying.
That's my job.
Oh, my gosh. It's so funny. So every time I have a question, you answer it before I get it out. So, or anyway, you touch on it. So I'm going to have to go back and re-listen because there was just a ton of really great stuff here today. The thing that I would like to know more about, and, you hear about the shiny object syndrome all the time, right? But The creativity addiction, that's the first time I ever heard it called that. And that is really hitting home for me. And so I just would love if you could expand on that a little bit more. Just kind of some of the warning signs that people might see if that's what they're going through, or how do you deal with it? And because I know that is definitely something that happens to me a lot, just wanting to get off onto the next project or the next idea, or, so what do you got to say about that?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is to recognize that it happens to every entrepreneur who's on the visionary creative side, which is most of us. There are some entrepreneurs that come in with a little bit different energy, but it's a very normal part of us. The opportunity here is to recognize when we're prone to it and when we're in it. Typically, if you're feeling overwhelmed, 9 out of 10 times, you've got some creativity addiction going on. Here's a really great self-check-in. Am I creating something because I'm bored, or because it needs to be created for the evolution of the business offerings? See, what happens is most of us get bored, we get restless, our offering isn't making as much money as we thought it would, it isn't really having the impact, so this little thing in our brain goes, well, I guess I better create something else that I think they want, instead of going to, how could I take what I already created, refine it, optimize it, tweak it, fix the copy, reposition it, go to a new audience, and make it perform better, which would be the optimizing phase. Mm-hmm. And we over-rely on creativity because creativity is what's fun for us, and it's what we know the best. One of the things that I had to learn that because I kept creating things, and I kept, that was my fallback, was that I was actually wasting money, wasting time, wasting resources, because the creation phase is the absolute most expensive phase that our business goes through. So every time we create, we're investing a lot of money. And what I was watching is all these entrepreneurs creating new things all the time, but they didn't really ever get them out to the market very well. And the next thing I knew, there was a new book or a new product or a new this or a new that. And I'm like, wow, what happened to the last thing? And they weren't ever optimizing the offer. So they were always in startup mode, spending all that money and not being profitable. So another clue is your cash flow is probably lower than you'd like, or your profit is much lower because you're always in that quote-unquote creativity startup mode and putting your time, money, and energy into that. And another clue I guess you might look at is if you're a creative addict, is you're always looking for the next big thing, which is hard for some serial entrepreneurs to really face. Is the next big thing is how do you make what you have work better? So if you're always starting something new and never making what you have work better, then you might have creativity addiction. Now, one of the things that I help people with in some of the programs that I teach is, all right, so let's say you are oftentimes realizing that you may not be making the best decisions with what you put your time and attention into, is I teach them how to make decisions better. And really, for most of us, it's just a formula. What's important? What do I value? Where's my genius? And where's the profit in this? And if I'm going to do this, how long will it take me to get to profitability? That's the short list. But helping people really evaluate with a little bit of a system actually makes it so much easier for them to make really effective decisions. I had a gal who's very, very well known in the virtual assistant community. She was a client of mine for a while. And in the first 2 weeks of us working together, we evaluated all the different bright, shiny objects she was chasing. And what she had to face was that 15 of the 20 things on her list were complete time wastes. They weren't making her any money. They were derailing her from the focus and attention she needed to have. And that's, oftentimes a hard thing to confront ourselves with, but it's very liberating at the same time.
It is hard to confront ourselves on that because it's so fun, like you said.
It is. But we have to learn how to evolve our fun meter. What if it was just as much fun to optimize what we have. Like, if we rechannel that fun energy and learn how to optimize, trust me, it's just as fun. We hadn't learned how to do it yet.
I know. Imagine how much fun making money could be. So, Alyssa, here's another clue if you have a creativity addiction. So, as Alyssa knows this about me, as I'm sitting here in my office looking at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes of postcards that I have that I've created that won't be going out in the mail, or some have. I have this. Melanie, Alyssa knows this about me. We've been together a while. Is that I have this addiction to postcards and brochures and things like that. And I always swear, I said, don't let me do another one. Don't let me order another postcard or brochure. Yet I do, and I'm looking at those 5 boxes that are sitting there now that need to go out to the recycling or something, or leave them there as a reminder to stop. Just stop the madness. Stop doing that. So,
I think you need a sign with like a big red slash over a postcard.
I do. I could plaster my walls in my postcards with a big red.
Yeah, but content creation might be your genius, Liz. I mean, when you think about it, because you do. I mean, it's easy for you, So
I like to do it. Well, so we think Alyssa thinks that my thing. I just have to stumble upon the right thing. If I keep creating long enough, I'll find the right thing. Maybe.
There you go.
We'll see. Well, we are unfortunately out of time already. This came by so fast because I want to make sure that we leave a couple of minutes here to talk about how can people find out more about you. What's your website? How can they learn more about you? Because I know people are going to want to learn more. This was so great. We appreciate it so much. So how can people get in touch with you or find out more about you?
Well, I'm all over social media. You can just look for Melanie Benson Strick. But one really simple, best first step is go to MelanieBensonStrick.com. That's STRICK. And on that site, there are a couple resources that I think could be really, really valuable for you. If you were relating to Alyssa and you're thinking, oh, my God, I might have creativity addiction too, there's a free report on the website right now. Now, get it quickly because it is actually going to be coming down soon. But that free report there, the 15 uncommon strategies for exponential growth, will be really invaluable for you. But if you recognize that your bottleneck to greatness might be that you have a hard time delegating, there's actually another resource there. I'll share a specific URL. You can get it as well. It's called EntrepreneurSecretWeapon.com. And I take you through a video training on how we become the bottleneck to our greatness by not understanding how to delegate properly and hire the right people to grow our leverage team. So that could be really helpful for you if that's where you feel like you might be bottlenecking. So a couple resources to help you get started, whichever one resonates better for you.
Awesome. And everybody, I will put this out on our website too, on thefocusradio.com, a link to the podcast and a link to Melanie's resources. And I'll pop it out on our Facebook page as well, because this was really great information. We always know it's a great interview when we have 3 pages of notes for ourselves. As I said, hey, nothing wrong with this. This is, if you're thinking about doing a podcast, just think of how much information you can get, all the great resources and all the great stuff. So we certainly appreciate it. You are a wonderful guest, and we hope to have you back on at another time because I'm sure there's so much more that you could share with us as well.
I'd love that. I'd love that. It's so much fun to share these resources with people, so happy to do it.
Good. We love that. So next week is our special guest is Katrina Sawa. Katrina is out in California. She will be joining us with lots of tips on marketing. She's a marketing expert and has all kinds of great information. So make sure that you join us again next week. Again, go to thefocusradio.com to find out, to listen again to this podcast from Melanie, to get Melanie's free downloads. Go check out her website. You'll love it. There's lots of great information out there. And until next week, have a successful, focused week.
You're listening to the Focus Radio Show on the EWN Radio Network.